The plot, it thickens. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. We take your calls tonight. We're here on a Tuesday night, folks. It must be important. Of course, it's important. The top 25 that actually makes sense is on the street. It's been out for 2 days. So that, of course, is the top story in college football. Every time we release a top 25 that actually makes sense, that is the cause of discussion from coast to coast. So we will review the top 25 that actually make sense, and we will look at the comments that have come in because they're always exhilarating. Michigan podcast was taped today, courtesy Steve Days and, of course, myself. And I appreciate Steve having me on each and every week or most weeks. And that was released today. So check out our discussion on Michigan football. That Michigan podcast released, I believe, this afternoon. And let's see, I've been taping all day. Iowa, Florida, Georgia, Nebraska, Kentucky, Tennessee, Clemson, all sorts of teams. Just lock it in here at the Voice of College Football. That's all I got to say. Only about 70 or 75% of those people watching are not subscribed. So please subscribe here at the Voice of College Football. Hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live. All right. For as much as all of you, or many of you, those of you who were not sick of talking about this Michigan scandal, of course, that's why you're here. We're going to go through the comments on the top 25 that actually make sense. So pull up your most recent version of the top 25 that actually makes sense. I want to see the comments that come in because they usually amuse and frustrate me. So let's see what we've got. We've got Jeff, Michigan fan here, and always look forward to your vids, Mark. You are always fair and balanced. Michigan fans, take it from Jeff. Always fair and balanced. Thank you so much for that, Jeff. Also, as we read off these comments, I am going to actually look at my top 25 that actually makes sense to see what possibly could be challenged as not making sense. We've got Ohio State number 1. That's pretty obvious, right? Florida State number 2, Michigan 3, Georgia 4, Oklahoma 5, Washington 6, Texas, Bama, Penn State, Ole Miss, Oregon 11, Oregon State 12, Utah 13, Louisville 14, Notre Dame's number 15, Duke is 16, 17 UNC, LSU's 18, Mizzou is 19, Air Force still undefeated, 7-0, breaking into our top 25 that actually makes sense at number 20. USC at 21, Iowa 22, Tennessee is number 23, 24 is UCLA, and 25 is Tulane. 1 week from tonight, mark it down, 1 week from tonight is the first release of the college football playoff rankings, and we will be here. We have made this a tradition. Each and every college football playoff ranking reveal, we will be here live with you watching it and then responding. Unite against evil. Man, I'm all for that. Unite against evil. Putting some respect on Louisville. Love it. Mark's claiming, now with a legit defense, the Buckeyes are a very dangerous team. Jack Package 4278. I got to give Ohio State secondary a lot of credit. Everyone pointing at Aller's terrible stat line, but the Penn State receivers were completely draped all day. Franklin is dumb for not sticking with the run. Only Talk Sports, Jeff. North Carolina 17th in the AP poll and in the top 25. That actually makes sense. That is crazy. UNC should still be in the top 10, though. No reason the Tar Heels should have lost to Virginia, but that is college football for you. Great list and video as always. Mark, thank you for that. AFS 67. Only issue I see is Louisville at 14 after losing to Pitt. But they beat Notre Dame. They've beaten everyone else. They only have one loss. Of course, that would also affect Notre Dame since they lost to Louisville. Thank you. Guess it comes down to who else would be ahead of them both. Yes, it's more difficult than you would think it is. Do your own top 25 and then hand it to 4 or 5 knowledgeable college football fans and let them pick it apart. Jeff says Notre Dame at 15 with 2 losses and a bad one versus Louisville, who had a bad loss to Pitt yesterday. Mark, if you are not well, you can tell us. It's only human. Again, Jeff, do the top 25, send it to me, and I will probably obliterate it. Yes, Notre Dame has earned a number 15 ranking with a blowout of USC, a last-second loss to Ohio State, a win over Duke. So they have 2 of the better wins in college football with USC and Duke. All right. RD22 is a Buckeye fan. Ranking Ohio State number 1 is the kiss of death. Keep us at number 3. Anthony says, I nailed it. Sports Network 171, respect to Mark for being consistent with his criteria, which he highlights at the beginning of the video. Where are the haters on these rankings now? It's entirely resume based. Thank you. Hassler, Michigan is going to absolutely roll Ohio State in just over a month in Ann Arbor for the 3rd straight time. I don't know what that has to do with my top 25, but thank you for the comment. Colin Bell, 3374, says, I'm not nearly as afraid of the Penn State-Michigan game as I was. And I can understand that, being a Michigan fan after what they saw in Columbus. Gaming Tremor, love this every week. Copal, good thing about Michigan, Ohio State is they play. That will make the most sense. Michael, top 3, my mind cannot grasp. Okay? Give me a call and I will help you grasp. Christopher Mueller, 627. Finally, someone with the guts to look at strength of schedule. That's me. Guts. Gaming Tremor with wins over Notre Dame on the road and then absolutely strangling Penn State's offense at home. Ohio State deserves to be number 1. Smooth Criminal, not coaches, not the AP, but this is the top 25 that actually makes sense. Thank you for that, sir. Tom Bouchard, looks good. Mark, not as much hate this week. Look at this, traveling on whatever that is. I'm disappointed. The disclaimers are disturbing. You've been doing this so long. I would expect your top 25 that actually makes sense to be perfect by now. Perfect sense. Sensibly perfect. Of course, it makes perfect sense that no top 25 that actually makes sense would make sense. Okay, one of these deals. Thank you for that. Traveling on, so forth. Christopher Shannon, actual performance and results this season is just how I do it and would like it to be done. But that's asking too much. People using neutral site prediction models. Yeah, none of that. Models. Well, yeah. Don't believe in that because it has not happened. User says Ohio State defense played lights out. George, I've got Florida at number 26. Of course they are. Schwass. Oh, sure. An Ohio State fan with Ohio State number 1. Just kidding, though, Mark. They have the 2 best wins of any team. Thank you. I've been waiting for that because I guarantee I have consistently ranked Ohio State, not just this season, but over time, consistently ranked them lower than the traditional polls. User says, still haven't got it quite right, Mark. Michigan should be number 1, especially after Ohio State's offense was exposed by Penn State. It's going to take more than one good player on offense for Ohio State to be Michigan. We're not making predictions. Thank you. That's not the ranking. Job 1925. Wow, finally Mark gets it right. Good job, brother. Mike Rotunda, appreciate Mike being here, says his top 3, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State. They are the 3 best teams I've seen all season. I'm only putting Georgia at number 1 because I better not read this. I better not even continue. Don't tell me that somebody's ranking Georgia number 1 because they won the national championship last year. Please. No. I thought we were better than that. Oh, I'm only putting Georgia at number 1 because they are the champ. They're not the champ. There is no champ. There's no champ. There is no champion in college football right now. Not played the season. Georgia won the championship last year. They will have to win it again this year. Kyle, I don't like all these props from Michigan fans in here, but Ohio State back at 3 and predict Michigan will beat Ohio State worse than they beat Michigan State. Okay. Ed Jasper, don't understand ranking Florida State so high They won 2 squeakers against average teams. They were outplayed statistically in both of those games, giving up 100 plus more total yards in those games. They also blasted LSU by 3 scores at Jasper. Quant G, I always love these comments. This is laughable and then does not explain. You know why? There's no way that individual can explain. They can't explain. They just want to criticize, but they won't explain because they can't explain. And they certainly won't call. Joel Mesh, come kick our donkey ass, then that will make sense. Take care, brother. All right. Mike, but here's the thing. It doesn't make sense. Well, when you make a comment about it not making sense and your sentence doesn't make sense, that tells us all we need to know. Nate Jones, 689, Ohio State, and a bunch of laughing. Okay, great. Ohio State, Buck Nato. Stop. You haven't included reputation projection, preseason biases. No, we have not. You're going on actual season to date results, trying to ruin college football hierarchy. Kidding, of course. Thank you. And then here we've got another moron who says this rankings, English has been lost on this society. This rankings makes no sense. And then this moron cannot explain why they don't make sense, because if he ever got into a debate with me, I would debate him under the table into a fetal position. Okay, Mark Messer, 97-47. Penn State still in the top 10. They haven't beaten anyone, have one loss, and performed terribly in that loss. But it was a close game. It was a reasonably close game, I'll put it that way. So consider that at Ohio State. I don't know how many teams lose that game by one score. There we go. Mark Kool-Aid. Penn State is always trash. Bill Cannon, 2384. Michigan won. Trump lost, and Ohio State is soft. All right. Girthy from Berthy. Intro music so loud. Okay. Well, it's actually within the parameters that we're given. And Christopher Foote is ranked every team in college football, probably. Yes, there's a zillion teams there. I don't know what that's based on. We've had 8 million conversations about that. Still have yet to determine what he's doing. All right, not used Dexter. Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Texas, Florida State is ridiculously high. Their only good win is against LSU. First game of the season. Clemson is a dumpster fire, and Duke has zero talent. And you don't know what you're talking about either. All right, so if you're knocking a win by 18 points against Duke, then do you know how many wins in college football are better than that win? Probably 10. So you're basically saying nobody's beating anyone any good. And that is one of the main flaws in most of the comments that are made, is that they don't consider any wins to be good. So basically they say this win doesn't matter and that win doesn't matter and that's trash and this is trash and that win doesn't matter because they're no good. And if you would really pin these people down to list the number of good wins in America, they would come up with like 8 games. And if that's what we're doing, then we need to reevaluate our thinking. All right. Just wanted to go through that with everyone. And now we'll get to the matter at hand, because I'm sure it's on everyone's minds. And I haven't addressed it. Well, we did a live stream when the news first broke. And we certainly talked about it later. We talked about it, of course, on the Big Ten show last night. Folks, get your family and friends, bring them on in here. We're going to talk college football with all of you, and we've got the phone lines open, but we want to march through the latest. So I'll just pull the ESPN story, and I saw the pictures and the video during the Ohio State game of, what's his name? The name should be etched in my memory now. We're all going to remember it. He's going to be more famous than 99% of the college football players who are currently playing by the time this is settled. Stallions. of him standing on the sideline next to Michigan's defensive coordinator during the game last year in Columbus. So we'll get to that. But here are updated details as of just about 90 minutes ago, according to Mark Schlabach and Pete Thamel, ESPN. All right, here we go. Let me pull this story up so we can all see it. So here we go. The scope of the alleged illicit scouting ring being orchestrated by suspended Michigan analyst Connor Stalions. I'll have to remember that name, Connor Stalions. I don't remember ever hearing that last name. Continues to grow, as sources told ESPN, that he bought tickets for games at 4 schools, I believe covering 11 teams in the Big Ten, outside of the Big Ten, that were either in college football playoff contention or playing contenders. Okay, 4 schools outside the Big Ten. I heard that there was 11 inside the Big Ten. There also is record of Stallions buying tickets for the 2021 and 22 SEC title games, sources told ESPN. The tickets to the SEC title games were purchased on the secondary market, according to sources. And of course, that scouting, that advanced scouting of the 21 SEC title games certainly proved to be beneficial to Michigan. Absolutely. ESPN also learned that Stallions, who is at the center of an NCAA investigation into Michigan's alleged sign stealing operation, bought tickets to a 12th Big Ten school. Okay. As sources said, 12 of the 13 possible Big Ten schools have a record of Stallions buying a ticket there. So I'm guessing that he bought a ticket to 12 Big Ten schools, excluding Ohio State and maybe Northwestern. According to 4 sources, all of the tickets for games outside the Big Ten involved contenders. Yes. The Big Ten announced last week that Michigan is under NCAA investigation for alleged sign stealing operation. Soon after ESPN reported that Stallions had emerged as a centerpiece of the NCAA's investigation into Michigan's sign stealing scheme on Friday, the school suspended him with pay. Since then, schools around the country have been checking their ticket data, which includes the secondary market in most cases, to see if Stallions purchase tickets to their games. ESPN confirmed that Stallions has purchased tickets to more than 35 games in 17 stadiums around the country. He has used a network of at least 3 people who were forwarded the tickets to attend the games. The NCAA has sent at least an hour video evidence that shows a person sitting in a seat appearing to video the home sideline with a smartphone. Stallions purchased the ticket for that seat. The video is expected to be used as part of the investigation to show that electronics were used in the signal stealing ring. Unless something happens right now, it's irrelevant, said a source on Big Ten campus, underscoring the frustration around the league. Everyone is mad. This is not right, but what is the NCAA going to do about it? Although the NCAA is leading the investigation into Michigan, the Big Ten could take action against the school before the probe is complete. The Big Ten sportsmanship policy states that Commissioner Tony Petitti has, quote, exclusive authority to determine whether offensive actions have occurred. Wow, is that vague? And to impose discipline for members. The policy lists integrity of the competition as a fundamental element that all Big Ten schools are expected to uphold. Institutions are responsible for the actions of its employees and for cooperating with the league during an investigation. The Big Ten has 2 categories for discipline. The first includes fines that don't exceed $10,000. Oh, wouldn't that be threatening? And suspensions of no more than 2 contests. The second, for major disciplinary action, requires approval from an executive committee made up of representatives of different schools, which can deny proposed penalties or reduce them, but not add to them. The Big Ten's penalties for Michigan State from the fight with the in the Michigan Stadium tunnel in 2022 were an example of major disciplinary action. A source told ESPN that the Big Ten would want to have as full of a picture of what the facts actually are if we are to act. That makes sense. Some of these times when there are statements made, yes, we would want the facts to have a full picture of the facts before we are to act. Is there a more obvious statement than that? In a statement last week, Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh denied illegally stealing signs and said he had never directed any staff member or others to participate in an off-campus scouting assignment. Oh, that's key. That's a key statement right there. Mark that one down. Jim Harbaugh said that he has never directed any staff member or others to participate in an off-campus scouting assignment. Okay. Enforcement timelines are notoriously slow. Michigan is still under investigation for recruiting violations during the COVID year, blah, blah, blah. The emergence of Stallions purchasing tickets at 3 playoff contenders outside the Big Ten reflects the potential breadth of the operation, which sources told ESPN last week was elaborate. ESPN reported on Monday that sources at 11 of the possible 13 Big Ten schools had confirmed Stallions bought tickets. Okay, then came a 12th. The ticket was purchased across the visiting sideline for a game against Ohio State. It's the 4th Ohio State-related game that ESPN has confirmed, 3 of which were in opposing stadiums where the tickets were purchased across from the visitor's sideline. And then the 4th was Ohio State this past weekend against Penn State. Those tickets were not used after Stallion's name emerged in an ESPN story Friday. On Tuesday, the tickets were not used, okay? On Tuesday, a Michigan spokesman reiterated that the school is unable to comment further, okay? Big Ten official also declined further comment, okay, due to the ongoing nature of the investigation. The conference has no comment at this time, and you all are patiently waiting, so we will get to your calls. Here we go. Michael, welcome into the Voice of College Football.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm exhausted.
I bet you are. This is exhausting.
I kind of just want to go on, a football site and not hear about this, especially in its, infancy about what's what.
I only want an individual, and maybe I'll seek somebody out who would have a better idea to tell us how much information you can gather from having a smartphone in the crowd.
I would wager very little, and I mean that's the other thing I was putting in the. I mean, do you really think that's the only person in the stadium that is using their phone? Because I mean, if you have a stadium that gets a decent enough signal, there are a lot of people on them, especially like content creators. I mean, the stadium is just full of them.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like serious football fans that are really intrigued in the inside workings of the game and that are on the as close to the action as they can get, and they're taking shots at the sidelines. Now, obviously, but the key is they're not utilizing it to compete.
I mean, how much competition utilization can you get from a phone, like you were saying?
Well, that's a big question. I can't imagine much of anything, but why would it be done then?
It could just be, just fan stuff. Because I mean, from my
Fan
understanding,
stuff? No, it's not fan stuff. It's this guy buying tickets for people to go check out Michigan's rivals and their competition upcoming.
okay, but I mean, this wasn't Stallions actually going to these games, though.
No.
Okay, so their smoking gun is that a friend or family member of a low-level analyst making $55,000 a year is somehow going to be, the secret to all of a sudden overcoming these teams that we're just weren't meant to beat.
Okay, well, none of that's relevant, though. If you cheat, you cheat. It doesn't matter whether people need to make an estimation as to whether you needed to cheat or you're better than those teams anyway. There's only one reason anybody cheats, and that's to gain an advantage to either ensure a win or make a disadvantage an advantage. There's only one reason to cheat, right?
Oh, I could think of a lot of reasons to cheat.
No, it boils down to one. There's only one reason that anybody ever cheats, and that's to get a better advantage toward winning.
Well, you forget the other reason to cheat.
Which is?
Because you can.
No, you cheat if there is absolutely 0% chance that anyone could lose a particular game, then they wouldn't cheat. You cheat to gain an advantage to win. That's the only reason there is to cheat. And so people can argue all day about how minuscule this is, but if it is cheating, it's cheating.
Absolutely. And say if it turns out that Stallions was going to these games, I mean that's a completely separate issue. If
Well,
Stallions
you're right.
are somebody higher up, then yeah.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, there is nothing wrong with these people going to these games and recording whatever they record. The issue would be is if it's then transferred to the Michigan coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, if you can somehow, do like a chain, back from, random guy that knows a low-level analyst to the low-level analyst to somebody higher up to Harbaugh. Okay, that might be a little damning. I guess the main things I'm looking at, are, does anybody directly affiliated with any type of staff show up in any of these games? Or, and this is one I've heard of, was there any type of audio? I don't know if the word is hack, but some sort of being able to compromise the communications. Those are the two things I'd be like, yeah, something's got to happen here.
Well, there is a connection between these people with the smartphones and the Michigan coaching staff. That's Stallions.
It eventually just becomes so watered down and convoluted that I can't see any type of major punishment. I mean, some of these people in here that obviously don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're still like, vacate wins, playoff ban, lose. I mean, I even heard somebody talk about death penalty, which makes it clear they don't know what the death penalty is. But I mean, they're talking about like major violations. Anything here, from what I've seen, might be what level 1 stuff. I mean, we're not talking about anything that's going to compromise the program going on out.
I don't know. But I thought that at the beginning, but if there is data that is being communicated, transferred from these people to the Michigan coaching staff, that's damning evidence.
Yeah. And if it comes down to everything gets brought back to the Harbaugh and some of the higher ups, yeah, we got to do something about it. I'm all for that.
But like you, and my first comment was, I would love to have somebody explain to me. And again, this doesn't matter to me in terms of what I believe should be done about cheating, but I would love to know how a coach, a scout gains anything from smartphone video in the crowd.
They'd have to have a really, really good phone.
Yeah,
a better phone than I've got.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
But actually, the main reason I called in is because you called me out whenever I post on there. I mean, the reason I was kind of surprised that Michigan was top 3 is that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you prioritize just the opponent over anything else. I mean, say you have like Team A, they win at home, last second field goal against a top 10 team.
Yes.
Then you have Team B, who beats a 50th ranked team by 6 touchdowns.
Yep.
it seems like you would, prioritize A over B in that.
Amen. I do.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason why, we kept, I understood that was the reason why we kept being so low, because I mean, we are just obliterating everybody we play, but the
And,
people we
and that's
play
also
aren't.
why I'm sorry, Mike. And that's why I also say it's not a perfect ranking. It's just the way I do it. At least it makes sense and I'm consistent. If somebody else wanted to prioritize the dominance of the wins over who you're playing. So if we were 10 games deep into the season and Team A was 10-0 and Team B was 10-0 and Team A had just played this murderer's row, Notre Dame, Penn State, Georgia, et cetera, and they won every game on the last play of the game, and Team B just obliterated decent teams, Louisville, Kansas State, whoever else you want to put in that category.
Rutgers.
I'm prioritizing Team A.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a while to figure, deep dive into the brain of Mark Rogers in this one, but I think I finally got it now, because
It's
where, it kind of the order goes, blow out a top team, then blow it, that is squeak by a top team, then below that is blow out a mid-level team, then after that it's squeak by a mid-level team, and then it's blow out some, spit bucket team.
yeah. And as we go through the season, it becomes much, much more complicated because there are more data points and more teams involved to look at.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that one of the reasons why we got bumped up to 3, other than the fact that, we're one of the few undefeated teams left, so you're not going to put a one-loss team above that. I'm hoping you realize that, some of these teams like UNLV and Rutgers are a little bit better than their reputation
Yeah.
lets them.
I reevaluate the previous games. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm constantly looking at the previous games and thinking, okay, well, what did that Rutgers win mean at the time versus what does it mean now?
Yeah, because I mean, I still think that, Rutgers is, going to have trouble shaking off that stigma, because, it's been recent memory when we went to New Jersey and beat them 78-0. Ohio State beat them that year in Columbus. I think it was 68-0. And I think Penn State and Michigan State both blanked them too. So, I mean, I think, when people say Rutgers, they kind of flash back to
Yes.
oh yeah, Rutgers is absolutely terrible. I mean, look at them, 7 years ago. When
Yeah.
it doesn't look like this is the same Rutgers team.
Yeah, we all, I believe, have to do that to a certain extent, not just go by the name brand, but realize how good the team is actually this year.
Yeah. And same way with UNLV. I mean, UNLV in recent memory has been absolutely horrible.
Oh, yes. They're one of the worst programs of the last 25 years, but not this year.
Right. So, I mean, I'm just saying, that I think I found out your system, Mark. I finally cracked the code.
Well, thank you, Mike. And again, I'm not saying it can't be done other ways, like it's perfect. I'm just saying it makes sense.
Yeah, I get where you're coming at. Okay, well, I'll hop off here and let the next person come up.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks a lot.
Good to hear from Mike. Mike, a loyal viewer. Appreciate Mike being here. And now I can mark off one other person who gets the top 25 that actually makes sense. That's good to know. Man, we're lining up the Michigan fans. We got Ben here tonight. Ben, what's going on?
Hey, Mark. How's it going?
I'm
Mike,
good.
Mike talked about pretty much what I called to talk to you about.
Okay.
I was I just kind of want to get your insight. I agree with your top 25, at least most of it. I mean, maybe there's a few teams that I might flip flop, but not far. I mean, I think Ohio State's earned number 1 spot. Only argument I would make for Michigan to have number 1 is that they've played 8 games and they've won everything in a which is more than 7, and they won everything in a dominant fashion. They played Indiana, they played some of the same teams, and they looked better against same teams that they played. But that's I would put, if I was doing the rankings the way you were doing, I'd put Ohio State number 1 too.
Yes. And so it's not necessarily who I believe are the best teams in the country. So that's another thing that people comment on. If I was going to do a rankings based on who I believe is the best, I would rank Michigan number 1. And probably Ohio State number 2. Probably Ohio State number 2, since Washington and Georgia and a few other teams have faltered while Ohio State has continued to improve, and that Penn State win was obviously a big win. I believe that would be my order if I was going by just who I believe are the best teams.
Yeah. How close was it for you? I mean, how at the top? Did you have any trepidations about putting Ohio State number 1, or
Yes.
were you? Did you?
So absolutely. Because I had Florida State number 1 the week before, and they had a tough game with Duke, but they pulled away in the final 10 minutes or so, and that's a very strong win comparing Duke and Penn State. I believe Penn State's a better team, but not by a lot. And so Florida State to win that significant of a game by 18 points and to fall, that's what most people don't get either, because we've been trained by the AP and by rankings that when teams claim their spot, that they can't fall. Especially coming off a win against a ranked team. That seems crazy. But if you measure the entire schedule and are constantly going through that process every week, then a Penn State win can overcome a Duke win, let's say, when you put the entire schedule under review.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. Yeah, the AP, and look at the AP. They don't suffer from recency bias at all, because there's no way. I mean, like even the AP poll, I was thinking maybe Ohio State would jump to number 1. But man, Georgia being there just makes no sense at all.
No,
I mean,
it doesn't.
You got to put either Michigan or Ohio State there. You can't put any other 2 teams. Maybe Florida State. Yeah, Florida State too. We could throw them in there, but that cracks me up. So I want only thing I'm going to let the next guy come on. The only thing I will talk about with the Michigan allegations is I actually think that the fact that they found out that it wasn't actually staffers going to the game makes a good case for Michigan, according to the point I was making about, how do you regulate anything beyond actual paid members of the staff? Because I mean, just for instance, like like I was talking about Kurt Warner, you can even see him at games with a cell phone out. He's at games. He's and he had a kid in at Michigan State. He talked about giving him advice. That's scouting. He's at these games. There's nothing that says that he doesn't or doesn't give any information. I mean, I understand it's a little different because of the fact that the staff member of Michigan was sending people to the games for that particular reason. So that, I mean, to have actual any different evidence. I think that's incriminating enough. Why else would he do it? Is he sending it there? I mean, it would be hard to make a case, a reasonable case that he wasn't sending people there to scout. But is according to the rules, that there's a technicality there.
Yes. So again, I mentioned before, I believe it would be damning evidence if these videos were transferred to Michigan coaches, but there could also be a scenario in which Stallions watched them himself, took notes, and never passed the videos along, and then there may be no trace of him taking notes and sharing those with the coaches.
Yeah, or have his friends trained on how to interpret it. And then maybe he doesn't even have the video himself. I mean, who knows? I mean, to what degree there's communication? That's a proof issue. It's like trying to prove that Warner didn't give help to his son or anybody else in the MSU staff, or Urban Meyer Well, he was, there, and he said he talked the day before the game. You can go even watch where he was at OSU campus and talking to people before the game. I mean, there's nothing that says that he didn't give any inside knowledge that he may have seen on the field while he was there in person. I mean, those things, they're degrees, but it's all within that technicality. I mean, if one is allowed, then the other one has to be allowed. Do you agree with that?
I'm trying to follow the last portion of that.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, I think it gets murky. I think it's like, I think that has to be a clearer rule. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of tired of the whole thing. I think it gets nitpicky. I think Michigan, basically, I look at it, I think Michigan was trying to push, or this guy is trying to push things to the farthest of the rule. He's trying to go to the edge of the rule, maybe thinking he's not breaking it. And if you look at it from the standpoint of other people that are at these games that are associated with other college schools, and they're at these games, and nothing comes down on these other people, and it's not just like it happens all over, like we discussed. Then from that standpoint, it should be the same water for everyone. I mean, it should be the same standard for everyone.
We know that it happens elsewhere.
Yeah, we know that it happens elsewhere, but we also do? Yes. I mean, but the thing is, we know that Urban Meyer's at Michigan games.
No. That again, that doesn't mean anything. We're talking about someone paying for tickets, sending people who have smartphones who are apparently recording signs and so forth. We don't know that happens elsewhere.
Well, apparently recording signs. Well, I'm saying that,
yeah.
For instance, but how is it not apparently that Kurt Warner, when you can see him on camera with his cell phone out? I'm not Kurt Warner. Am I saying his name right? Anyways, the head of he used to be the Big Ten commissioner. He has had his phone
Warren.
Kevin Warren. I said Kurt Warner, but
okay,
I meant
every
Kevin
time
Warner.
You said Kurt Warner, I didn't know who you were talking about.
I mean Kurt Warner. I meant Kevin Warren.
Kurt Warner. His son played in Nebraska a few years ago, so I didn't know where you were going there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was saying
Kevin Warren.
Kevin Warren. Yeah, you have video of him at games with his phone out.
Okay, what's that have to do with anything?
Because
Kevin Warren is the commissioner of the Big Ten.
He was the commissioner of the Big Ten, but this is what I'm saying.
He's not affiliated with a team.
Well, his son went to Michigan State, and he talks. He coaches his son. So
he's not a coach on the coaching. He's not a coach on the coaching staff of Michigan State.
Yeah, but he could relay information.
He's a family member.
But he could relay information.
He could. All sorts of people could do anything.
That's what I'm saying. But I mean, he could relay information to.
No, man, you are making a enormous stretch. We're talking about somebody who is paid and is on the Michigan coaching staff, has purchased tickets for individuals to go to, and ironically, these are all opponents of Michigan in the future. He's not just a kind man who's sending tickets to people. And then there is evidence of them having smartphones and doing whatever with them. We don't know. Apparently, and it's conjecture that they're pointing them. There is obviously a record of where the seats were purchased, where they are facing. So Kevin Warren going to football games, First of all, he's the Big Ten commissioner. He was
No,
the Big Ten commissioner. So why would he not be going to football games?
Okay, I know. And the same thing. I guess
And
the
he's not
same thing
affiliated with a team.
and the same thing with Urban Meyer. He's not at all affiliated with Ohio State. Then
He's a member of the media. He was hired by Fox. Do you know what? If the Big Ten had an issue with Urban Meyer going to Michigan or any other team in the Big Ten's practices and their games, then they should have told the Big Ten, their partner, their number one partner, they should have said, we cannot have you hire Urban Meyer because he could be cheating or relaying signals or whatever you're coming up with.
but that's what I'm just saying, if the rules, I mean, if there's a rule,
Yeah.
and if the rule is that the staff members can't go, and he sends non-staff members, then that's the rule, and he's going, and that's what I'm saying. If you're gonna, well, I understand it's the idea behind the law, but the law, that rule is not even there for sign stealing. That rule is there for a whole different reason. So the rule is not a sign stealing rule.
What's it there for?
The scouting rule,
Yes.
has nothing to do with sign stealing. The scouting rule, it was back in '94.
Well, I know that. Yes, it was a cost-cutting measure to make.
And it has nothing to do with sign stealing.
Well, yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
That wasn't. So let me say something and see if you agree with me. The intent was not directed toward that being an unethical action. So it was not determined scouting another team, whether that means just scouting and looking at their formations and looking at their athletes and scouting them, or that could involve sign stealing. It was never deemed that is an unethical act, and therefore we are abolishing it and we're adding this to the rule book. No, the impetus was, this is something that costs money for the athletic programs, and whomever have probably complained and let it be known, we can't afford this. We can't keep up with our competition. And therefore it was determined, so nobody has to pay for this and everybody's on equal footing. No one can do this.
Okay,
so yes,
exactly.
It's not like it was deemed an unethical behavior.
So now what this guy did is
the result is still the same. He paid for in the rule book that you can't do it.
But it didn't come out of the university's pocket. The guy could have paid for it out of his own pocket. So
what's that have to do with anything?
It doesn't. Because that's what the rule was there. He's not scouting. He's not breaking he's not getting money from why the rule is in place. It's for a money. As on a money standpoint, had nothing. Do you understand, Mark?
No, I don't.
That makes, because
I know what you're saying.
Through the lens of sign stealing. You're looking at through the lens of sign stealing. The rule was put in place for a month. It's like, okay, so you can't spend money. Let's say a team can't spend money on equipment, because the rules, like a team is allowed money on equipment, and
yes,
it's not like somebody somebody outside of the program.
I'll make it a little more exact for you. If there was a determination, there cannot be hand warmers on either sideline because certain schools cannot afford them. So there are not going to be hand warmers on either sideline. But some fan showed up with a hand warmer and said, I want to donate these to Michigan. So they have hand warmers on the sideline, and they hid them and they snuck them in on the sideline. They would still be breaking the rule that there aren't supposed to be hand warmers on the sideline.
If the rule states that they cannot be,
the rule would be stating, just like this one does, there are no hand warmers on the sideline for either team.
But the rule, in this
regardless
case,
of how they're purchased,
the rule says no. The rule says that it can't be done by what?
By the team.
Yes, by the team.
Yes.
So,
yes. And this guy is paid by the athletic department. He is a member of the team.
So okay. So that's what I'm saying. So that's the rule that you're gonna. That's the rule that you're looking at. It's not to do with the sign stealing. It has to rule that he spent money, but at the same time, what say if now, but at the same time, what say if it's somebody outside and that it's not somebody outside the organization, and they paid it and paid the tickets. And he used his account to purchase. Would that make a difference? I mean, or it's but it's all
the
about
rules to do any advanced scouting on campus at stadiums using electronic equipment. So if, however that happened, that did happen, and it was transferred to the coaching staff of any team, then that would be against the rules.
Well, there's two rules, and the one rule is about advanced scouting, which has nothing to do with sign stealing. And the other one is on-field equipment. On-field equipment does not include.
Do you really think that the spirit of the rule, or even the wording of the rule, would outlaw advanced scouting but not include stealing signs?
Well, I think that the spirit of that law was actually made for cost reasons.
It was made for cost reasons.
So if this guy's paying it out of his own pocket,
it doesn't matter.
But that's what I'm saying. It's
regardless of the reason and the cause for implementing and writing the rule is still the rule.
But he still broke it. So he still broke it.
Yes.
But he didn't. That's the rule that was broken. It's not sign stealing rule. It's not. It has nothing to do whether he stole signs or not. He wasn't doing that the wrong way. He broke that rule, and whether he did it on his own or whatever, he broke that rule, and it's not. It has nothing to do. It's not sign stealing. It has nothing to do with the other rule about audio equipment or anything like that, because that one wouldn't apply. And that's what I'm saying. But I'm going to talk about this, and I'm sure the chat's blowing up.
We will probably.
I didn't mean to. I'm sorry, Mark. I blew up I apologize to everyone.
You're fine, Ben. Don't worry about it. I can always I have the control on the show. I can kick people off whenever I want. So I appreciate you being here.
All right. You have a good one, man.
You too, Ben. Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. Let's remind everyone that the Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. Every video we do here at the Voice of College Football, including this live stream, the Amazon links in the description section. Please grab it and use that to purchase on Amazon. It's going to be the same shopping experience. So exactly what you do on Amazon right now, the same access to the site is exactly the same. You help us build and grow the channel by using the link that we provide. It doesn't cost you one penny. All right, Rob, we appreciate you being here. What's going on tonight?
Hey, what's up, Mark?
Not too much. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. So last time we talked, I kind of mentioned that, and this was before some of that, some of the new information came out about Michigan, and I was like, yeah, I think the NCAA's just got pardon my French, but kind of a hard on for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan and all that. Yep. And it seemed like that to me at the time, but now with this new evidence coming out, it does certainly look a lot worse for Michigan, no matter what, people might, even the most diehard Michigan fans have to admit that this is not a good look, regardless. But I will say that, it's not like 100% proof that, that Jim Harbaugh knew about this. I do find it hard to believe that if he's got a paid staffer that's doing this and they find out that he was using it to steal signals and all that, that Jim Harbaugh wouldn't know. And so my question is, at that point, what do you feel like the appropriate penalty would be for Michigan? Yeah.
Yeah, I answered this question last night. We had,
Oh,
I believe
okay.
it was Nick was on here, and I finally won him over, but it took some time because I come at this, I am a contrarian when it comes to this, very much so. Because on one hand, I understand the argument that until something can be proven to me differently, I get the whole argument that how in the world does this give them much of an advantage or give them any real information that could be used? And what in the world are they gaining from uh, video from smartphones in the crowd? And then also people are making comments about their competition and Michigan so much better and da 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 da. All that. I get it. I understand it. I get it. But what is the sole purpose of cheating?
Yeah, right. To get a competitive advantage.
Yes, otherwise you wouldn't do it. Like
Right.
all the people that make comments, and I'll even take it to the Tom Brady example from the whatever year that was, 2012 AFC Championship game against the Colts.
Yep.
People argue that it's a joke because the Patriots won the game 45-7. They were so much better than the Colts, and all those things are irrelevant. They might be in a practical sense true that they didn't need to cheat and all those other things. I don't know. Those are arguments that could be made, but the fact that you decide to cheat, that you first of all are ethically corrupt enough to cheat, regardless of whether anybody, let's say you have a guarantee that nobody's ever going to find out. Now, we know that there would be so much more cheating than there currently is, but it's still morally and ethically wrong to cheat. But there are rules in play and ways to investigate. So you are running a risk. So you have deemed it, whoever the knucklehead is that did it, whether it's gone all the way to the top of Jim Harbaugh or this guy is acting alone, somebody at some level is making a determination that we need to cheat for some reason. And the only reason to cheat is to gain an advantage that is going to change the outcome or ensure the outcome. I think that's a airtight definition to cheating. Those are the only two, and they're really the same definition, but I'll even distinguish those two things: to change the outcome, believing that we need to do this to win, to change a loss to a win, or at least to ensure that we're going to win. We need to do this. And I believe I used a poor analogy, but one regardless, that when I was playing backyard basketball, pickup basketball in the driveway with my son when he was 8 years old, I had no chance of losing that game. But if I cheated, if I changed the score just because it made me feel better or something for whatever reason, I was still cheating. Now, when he became 15 and he was a threat to beat me, then that was different in a sense, but it wasn't different in that cheating was still done to achieve a purpose. And that's to ensure that you're going to win or give you a better shot of winning. So what penalty directly relates to or attacks that issue? Taking away wins. If you won games in which you were cheating, regardless of not making some kind of subjective analysis of it to say, well, they didn't really need to. They beat Rutgers by 50 points. They didn't need to cheat, even though they did cheat. Well, then don't cheat. It's simple.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing that I think some people, like, if you know exactly what your opponent's going to do, don't you think that's going to make it easier to win the game?
Of course.
If you know they're going to run a certain type of defense, you can try to run an offense that's going to be more effective against this. Rocks, paper, scissors. It's basic coaching. So even if Michigan is far superior athletically than a lot of the teams that they're going up against, their offensive line is obviously great, things like that. Even if that's the case, having that, if it's true, again, this is all if it's true,
Yes,
if they
yes.
are cheating,
Yes.
then that is it's still a massive advantage that they have over their opponents that their opponents don't have over them.
And if a Michigan fan or any other person, let's say this is the worst case scenario for Michigan. Jim Harbaugh knew about it. They get all this information. If people wanted to tell me that didn't really matter, they didn't need that, I would even say to them, you know what? You may be right. Then they are extremely stupid to do it. Number one. And number two, it doesn't matter because they broke the rules. So they shouldn't have done it. But there are a lot of ifs there. And the one caveat in all this that I would feel, man, this almost pains me to say, but I would almost feel a slight little soft spot in my heart for Michigan is that if a bunch of other teams were doing exactly the same thing. Now, I keep hearing that, but we've never heard of that before. That's not been talked about. It's not like recruiting where there's an understanding that, okay, this is going on to some degree everywhere. I've never heard of any inkling of any other school doing this. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I'm just saying I've not heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that before. Like, oh, everybody's doing it. Well, where's the evidence? Like, why is Michigan the only one getting caught? And it's like, okay, maybe other teams are just better at it. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion personally, just so everyone knows. I mean, I'm of the opinion that Michigan's probably good enough. They don't need to cheat. But again, they haven't. First of all, they haven't played anyone that they've really needed to cheat against. Anyways, their schedule's been a cakewalk. They have one of the weakest. I think they have 2 teams that they've gone up against that have received votes. Period. Like Rutgers got 2 votes, I think, or something like that, and then I'd have to look at who else. But I mean, their schedule's been ridiculously easy. Yeah. That being said, they have blown out every person, pretty much everybody they've played, or at least handled them solidly. So, yes, they're crushing the teams they need to. So good for them. I don't think they need to cheat. I think they're good enough where they don't need to cheat. So it's a really, like you said, it's an incredibly stupid thing to do if true.
If true. Yeah.
If true. Yeah. And that's a big if. So we'll have to wait and see if it's actually the case. But yeah, if this is true, I mean, and especially if Jim Harbaugh knew, and I find it again incredibly hard to believe that he didn't know if it's true, then this is a really bad look for Harbaugh and the whole Michigan organization. It's just kind of a massive black eye. So we'll have to see what happens there. But yeah, well, it's interesting.
I'll add this too, Rob. I don't know if you read the story yourself or you were here in the chat at the beginning when we first read the story by Thamel and Schlabach on ESPN. But according to their sources, Michigan did the same thing in 2021 and 2022, not just during the Big Ten season, but and I don't remember what the number was, to possible playoff teams that they could have faced. So if they advanced scouted, stole signals, whatever, Georgia in 21 and TCU in 22, then it certainly didn't work then.
So. Yeah, that's true. The TCU game is probably still, yeah. Well, we won't talk about that for all the Michigan fans in the chat right now, but yeah, no, it's kind of funny. We'll have to see how that goes. I would say that as far as your top 25 that makes sense, I do agree with Ohio State being number 1. Although I will say I've gained a little bit more respect for Florida State. I don't think they should be number 1, but they did beat Duke. And yes, it took, I think, in my opinion, it took the quarterback, Riley Leonard, going down for them to be able to win. Because, again, Duke was winning. They were driving. They were in the red zone. They were probably going to score another touchdown and go up by another score. So who knows? But he got injured, and then that changed the whole shift of that game. So I do think Florida State's a little bit better than I was giving them credit for. And they're undefeated. So yeah, props to them. I still think Ohio State's probably, in my opinion, the number 1 team based on resume. At least there's, beating 2 top 10 teams at least at the time. Notre Dame at home. And then going to, or having Penn State come to Ohio and just really dominate Penn State. I mean, that was, Penn State got that touchdown in garbage time and they just couldn't do anything offensively. That Ohio State defense looked great. So yeah, I think Ohio State's in a good spot at number 1.
Yeah. Again, I'm not saying that Ohio State's the best team. I'm just based on my criteria that elevates them to number 1. I do think that Michigan's played the best football from start to finish.
Yeah, but I go back to that point as well when we talk about that. It's like it's easy to look great when you're playing weaklings. Again, like Notre Dame looked amazing in their first 4 games when they weren't playing anybody. Then they actually had to play Ohio State and some tougher teams, and it's like, okay, now we see where the where the chips fall. So yeah, Michigan looks great, like playing all these weak teams, but we'll see what happens when they actually have to go up against some better teams, and then we'll have probably some good games there. But I'm gonna let you go. I know you got a lot of callers, so I see some Michigan fans very mad at me. That's cool. I don't really care.
I appreciate it, Rob. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right, folks, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Ticket Smarter is the best source on the secondary ticket market. It's called Ticket Smarter, and I'm not even going to try to find the banner. I will a little bit later. Ticket Smarter, if you want to go to a game, Ticket Smarter is the place to be. Use our promo code BIG, get you $10 off. BIG20 gets you 20 off of a purchase of at least $300, and you can use that over and over and over and over and over. Use it as many times as you want this college football season. Ticket Smarter. Get the Ticket Smarter app. It's safe and secure. It's been tested. Best place to find the best deal to get in the stadium, whatever game it is, on the secondary ticket market. All right. Let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Dominic's calling tonight. Dominic, what's going on?
Mark.
Yes.
Listen, I need to get something off of my chest.
Okay.
Some people are saying that Kansas State should be at rank 25.
Okay.
I personally disagree. I do not think Kansas State deserves to be at 25. What do you think?
Well, I don't have Kansas State ranked in the top 25, in my top 25. So I guess I would agree with you. But I think they're awfully close. They're 5-2, I believe, is their record, if I'm correct on that.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, they're 5-2. They lost to Missouri on a last-second field goal, a 61-yard field goal. So that loss is becoming a better and better loss all the time because Missouri continues to win. They beat Texas Tech by 17, UCF by 13. They beat TCU by 38. They beat a Troy team that had won 14 consecutive games by 29. So they certainly have an argument. I have a few 5-2 teams in my top 25.
Right, but there is one team that has shocked me that has moved up to the number 19 spot overall, and that is the Air Force Falcons.
Yeah.
I did not expect them to be this good at all, but oh boy, was I ever wrong about this team.
Well, I am not surprised by Air Force being 7-0. And they're a difficult team to rank. Any team in the Mountain West or in the group of five is difficult to rank because they don't play the type of schedule everyone else plays. So Air Force has yet to play a Power 5 team. So I was reluctant to rank them, but I've got them at number 20 because these other teams that are around them in the rankings have played much, much tougher schedules.
Yeah, kind of like Tulane, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of like Tulane, which they just got back into the top 25 rankings after. Did they win last week?
Tulane did not play last. No, they won by. They beat North Texas by 7 last week.
Oh yeah, I thought so. But I've actually been hearing about these Michigan allegations, and I just got one question to ask.
Sure.
Has Jake Harbaugh really lost his mind? Because I personally think he's lost his mind.
Well, let's be kind and let's consider them innocent until proven guilty.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah, I would personally agree, but
You believe he's lost his mind because he's allowed his staff to go out and cheat? If
that's
these
what I'm trying.
allegations are true?
That's where I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. Okay. No, I get it. But I would just like, me personally, I like to just take in all the investigation, and then we talk about different scenarios, and if these are true, then what should happen and all that. But I like to abide by the rule that people are innocent until proven guilty.
Right, right. That's what I'm saying, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for having me on. Have a
Sure,
good night, Mark.
Dominic. You have a good night.
You too.
Thanks for calling. All right, we'll keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football, but we want to pick off these super chats. Thank you so much for them. Mamba24, sure, a Kobe fan there. Do you think they ban us from the playoff? No, I do not believe that Michigan's going to be banned from any playoff. What I just determined to be my punishment, if these allegations are true, are not what is going to take place. I do not think in any such way. I think this is going to involve money and just probation, meaning probation in that we will continue to monitor you, and maybe scholarships. I don't think. I don't think. I think this is going to be if it's proven to be true on some level, is going to be a black eye and cause college football fans to hate the Maize and Blue to a certain extent and call them cheaters, and they'll get the Houston Astros type of treatment going forward. But I don't believe it's going to be a serious handing down of penalties. I don't believe. And then we've got David. Thank you so much for the contribution, sir. We appreciate you. If they're willing to have their players untying shoes on national TV, they're definitely stealing signs. Stop the justification of cheating. All right. Hopefully that's not directed toward me, because I certainly don't justify cheating. I do not justify cheating in any way. All right. Let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. And we've got Michael Hogue on the line. Michael, how you doing tonight?
Good. Just going away to work right now. And yourself?
I am doing just fine. Good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
All right. Hey, I got a question in a couple of points and stuff like that. First of all, Ben sounds like a attorney who's trying to get his try to get a $12 appeal for his client to get it away from like a stay of execution. The way he was going earlier, it seemed like he's trying to get his client off of death row and stuff. But that's just my take about that. But no, you wonder if somehow Michigan gets cleared of this, what's that going to do for the outlook of college football? And what's all the naysayers saying that, oh, throw Michigan to the wall and stuff like that and stuff?
Wait a minute.
What is it going to do? I mean,
if Michigan
is cleared, yes.
Then what?
What is the naysayers going to say? Oh, they got lucky, they paid him off and all this stuff? Or how many people out there will be willing to give them a heartfelt apology and stuff like that? I would probably say nobody. They'll probably say, oh, they paid the NCAA off and all this good stuff.
Well, it depends on who would need to give them an apology. I would not be in that place, because I'm not lashing out with judgment right now. I am just waiting to see the investigation take place. And if Michigan is determined to be scot-free and innocent in all of this, I'll just report that and we'll talk about it. And it will not impact my thinking on Michigan football whatsoever.
No, I was talking about all the people saying they should be convicted and get like death penalty and all this stuff. That's what I'm saying.
Well, you're always going to have people that are going to be critics, and then you're always going to have people that will defend to the hilt, regardless of what the evidence is and what the outcome is. So you're always going to have the extremes.
But what's this going to say if they are, as far as the outlook for college football? Is many more teams going to actually try to do this, you think, or is this just maybe a rare occurrence?
I have never heard of any of this. With all the things that have been discussed, talked about, people have written about regarding violations of NCAA rules, usually regarding, pay for play, and regarding recruiting. This one has never come across my radar of schools being accused of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
So
saying
I
that it
was just
doesn't
wondering.
happen elsewhere, but I don't know.
Yeah, but anyway, I would say today's the 3-year anniversary. I found your channel, Mark.
The 3-year anniversary?
Yeah, and we subscribing to your channel and stuff and finding your channel.
Oh, this is the 3-year anniversary. Everyone, this is the 3-year anniversary. Let me see if I can get a good wind up for you here, Michael.
Yep.
Michael, thank you so much for subscribing to the Voice of College Football 3 years ago. It has been a joy to have you here.
Thanks. But hey, one thing, speaking of that, how come we don't do that with the new cars no more?
It doesn't cross my mind, or I would. You know, the other reason why is because my mic used to come in. I used to have a crane mic that went, made much easier. Now I got to kind of like, but I don't think about it. But that is a good thought. I enjoy doing that, even if people don't enjoy listening to it.
Yeah. Oh, one last thing before I let you go. You had the top 25 that actually makes sense, right?
Yes.
It comes out. Is there any chance next year you can do bottom 25 that it actually makes sense?
Ooh. Well, what I would like to do, Michael, is I truly believe every team should be ranked. I don't think it makes any sense to stop the rankings at 25. There's nothing magical about the number 25. Everybody should be ranked. So,
yeah. Sure. No, I just didn't know if you'd be willing to do a top 10 bottom 25.
If we had enough people watch that video, I would rank every team in the country.
Yeah, but how much homework would that, Mark? You would never get sleep, man, because you would have to figure out how you can rank all 135,000 teams each week.
Well, I would need some kind of database to keep track. Right now, I do this. I got them all listed with all their wins and losses there, but I would need some kind of program that would help me slot teams a little bit better and kind of rate wins. I would come up with some kind of system that would rate a win. You know, you beat Purdue by 14, that's worth 6 points or something like that.
Yeah, not bad. Oh, I finally seen you got yourself a new laptop computer, or is that the same one you've had issues with?
Oh, it's ancient.
You still haven't got your new laptop yet.
No new laptops. No.
Oh man, come on, guys! We gotta do a GoFundMe for Mark, man. We gotta give him some new laptops, man.
I'm fine. Let's just grow the channel, get some sponsors. We'll be fine.
Oh, we're growing and stuff like that, but no, I was just wondering stuff like that. Then, all right. So tomorrow or Thursday, you gonna be talking about the games for this week, or you already do that and just won't release the videos until tomorrow?
If you're asking about previews, I'm going to have a Georgia-Florida preview and a Tennessee-Kentucky preview and Clemson-NC State and shoot, I don't know who else. But yeah, we're going to preview. We'll preview. Yes, week 9.
Yep. Yes. I was just wondering. Oh yeah, and I guess Uga's favorite. He's going to eat his favorite appetizer on Saturday. A bunch of alligators. I got a feeling that game might be ugly.
It might be. All right, Michael. Anything else?
Take care. That's it. Have a good one.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night. You too. All right. Here we go. Let's keep going here at the Voice of College Football. What else do I need to tell you folks? We, of course, have our line of merch, one of which I'm wearing currently. So keep that in mind. It's a good look. I enjoy this jacket. I love this jacket. So as soon as the weather dips a little bit, then I go to this. I've got a red Voice of College Football jacket, but I'm not really into red, even though it's my favorite color. I don't like to wear a red jacket, but it's still a good looking jacket. But this is the one I prefer, the black top 25 that actually makes sense. So folks, check out the merch that we have, and we will post the link in the chat. And let's get to Sean. Sean's on the line.
Hey, Mark.
What's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
Oh, can't complain. These little scandals, whenever they come out, they're always amusing to watch because you see people that have these real strong opinions on each side, and you can usually tell what their rooting interest is.
Yes.
And you know if the shoe was on the other foot, the roles would be completely reversed.
Exactly.
And I think you have to ask yourself whenever something like this happens, like before you get too partisan, too emotional, it's like, how would I react if I was on the other side? And,
Yes.
and how can I react to this if I'm completely neutral, if I didn't really have a dog in the fight?
The conversation, Sean, that we have on here from time to time that perfectly illustrates that is, and the most recent one was we did a live stream where we pitted the 1997 Michigan team against the 1997 Nebraska team, because of course they shared a national championship to say who was better. Now, my opinion is they fairly split a national title because you cannot decide between either one. They both played tough schedules in tough conferences and went undefeated. So in my eye, I have no issue with people saying, I think one team was better. That's an opinion. That's great. But the thing that makes it obvious that people are so incredibly biased is there wasn't one Michigan fan who said Nebraska was better and would win that game. There wasn't one Nebraska fan who said Michigan was better and they would have won that game. Now there's, and most of them said, oh, I know I'm being unbiased about it, but no, you're not.
No.
There is no way that if you were Michigan and Nebraska fans and judging, a Washington Miami national championship tie, that you would
have that same spirited discussion over the 1990 Georgia Tech and Colorado.
Yes,
you might not get quite as much activity in that discussion, but see who they think would win that one. That being said, I mean, I'm looking at this. I don't think this looks the evidence that's been revealed so far, I don't think looks particularly good for Michigan here. I mean, you have a $55,000 a year staffer buying, I would say, at least 60 tickets. There's 30 tickets, so if he minimum bought two, I would think, to each of these games. And to all these games, those tickets where they would probably be viewing probably aren't cheap. They're probably, $200 to $1,000. Those tickets that they're purchasing. He's not getting them way up in the rafters, I don't think. And I don't know how often someone at that low of a position is going to be standing next to both coordinators and regularly communicating to them almost between each play of every game, and have that, and then also this week, suddenly the tickets he purchased for both sides of the Ohio State Penn State game, the tickets that he purchased weren't used in the game this week. No one showed up to sit at those. I don't know. I mean,
I guess somebody got sick, couldn't make it.
Yeah. All people got sick going to that. So, I mean, I'm trying to be, objective, and maybe this practice is more ubiquitous than I'm aware. But I don't see evidence of, or even really accusations of, other programs doing this right now. And it doesn't even matter if a lot of teams are doing it; it's still strictly prohibited. Now, you made a point that I was kind of surprised by. You actually think it absolves them of some culpability if they're not on staff, if they're not actually paid by the university?
If that information or that video was never transferred back to the coaching staff.
Okay. I mean, do you think the likelihood is these people bought it and just kept it, that again, this $55,000 a year staffer paying, these $500 tickets, is just giving it to them. They're taping the sidelines, and they're just holding on to that for like educational purposes or something. I mean, like it seems implausible, like impossible to me that this information wasn't communicated up the food chain in some way.
So what I'm saying is that there are crimes that are sometimes committed where all of us would agree, or most of us would agree, that doesn't make sense. Therefore, this must have happened, or this must have been the incentive to do this, and then this must have been the result. But if it can only be proven to a certain point and there's no way to prove, or if that evidence has been destroyed, that you can't prove past a certain point, then you can't make assumptions.
Okay.
So
right.
they either need to find what would be best to prove is to find the video evidence of it being transmitted back to the Michigan coaching staff, or that the money came from the University of Michigan to pay for these people to sit, because that would be difficult to justify. Why are you just paying for random people to sit in games of teams playing that you are about to play? Why did you choose those games and those people?
Yeah. I mean, we're also like very early in this investigation, and like those are the starting points. Like if this much is what we know now, then it seems likely that there will be a case built that will implicate, obviously saying it, like if this is all the evidence they have, they don't have enough to really levy that harsh of a punishment against Michigan. But it's damn suspicious. I mean, and suspicion is the first step in the whole process. And plus, the NCAA can be fairly capricious with these. I mean, sometimes their punishments and how they enact, they don't make a lot of sense. Like North Carolina had a huge academic scandal. Basically, none of those players were going to school at all. They had a bunch of people going there for 4 years.
Yep.
And getting no education whatsoever. I mean, it's just mass, and there's cheating and fraud and everything, and nothing happened to them. Like absolutely nothing. Miami, you've got a whole bunch of money launderers financing their programs, and then nothing happens to them either in that situation. But then you get like a couple of these, like Reggie Bush took a $500,000 loan from an agent, and USC's program gets destroyed for the next 5 years. They strip away. So, I mean, it's hard to know what the NCAA is going to do about this, or whether they're going to act, in good faith jurisprudence through this, because they've shown no consistency through my lifetime of watching football in this manner.
Yeah, and we don't, that I know of, have a precedence. No, not for something like this. I don't know. It's interesting to me that this is the first accusation that's come out, because I'm pretty certain that Michigan's not the first team to ever kind of advance scout, and I've heard coaches complain about sign stealing in the past, but it's never risen to this level, to what I've seen. And I don't know. It's interesting. I was wondering, have you heard anything about like some sort of the counter accusations against Ohio State for potentially advanced scouting? The counter accusations.
Well, there's some accusations. There were some images leaked on about a Venmo transaction between two Ohio State staffers, two Ohio State quality control coaches. Have you heard about this at all? Okay. Well, I don't know if this is going to be a bigger story. End up being a bigger story, but yeah, apparently one, because I mean, it looks pretty frivolous to me anyway. It looks like one of the quality control coaches sent a Venmo payment, public Venmo payment to another quality control coach it was 2 days before the Ohio State Notre Dame game with a leprechaun emoji to describe the payment. And then they show that one of the quality control coaches, who I guess wasn't on the field, wasn't one of the coaches senior enough to be on the field, showed him behind the Notre Dame sidelines, like 5 rows up or something, Instagramming, some of the game. That seems to be an interesting point, is that I know one of the quality control coaches pretty well in this.
Yeah.
So, he's someone I coached in wrestling back in the Metro Detroit area about 10 years ago.
Are we talking about a quality control coach being in the crowd of a previous Notre Dame game?
No, of the Ohio State Notre Dame game.
With the purpose of what at that point?
Yeah, that's the entire question. It's like, I don't know. Like, I guess they're saying maybe he's communicating signs to them, like what their signs are. Okay. But that would make no sense, because the coach, there's coaches across the field that could see the signs that the Notre Dame coaches are giving. So I don't know exactly. I mean, I was just curious if you had heard anything about that, because I saw it and I'm like, that's pretty laughable at this point.
No, I did not see anything on that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, probably nothing will come from that. So it's awesome. All right. I just wanted to bring up those few little points here. Just everyone be objective. I mentioned this last night. I don't take any joy in seeing this happen to Michigan. I'm not hoping for their fault. And I'm just trying to logically see where this is going. Right now, I'd say most of the information coming out is bad for Michigan. I'm not hoping for a bad outcome for Michigan. I'm not looking to like build in any excuses for why they haven't gotten it done against Michigan the past couple of years and why they might not get it done this year. I'm fine with taking losses. I think making excuses is a miserable way to live life, miserable way to go through it. So I'm not interested in that at all.
Yeah, I would like for everyone to abide by the rules and all the results on the field to be whatever they're going to be. Mm-hmm. And in a perfect world, nobody gets hurt and all of that. But of course, that's not going to happen. But I want this to be not true, actually. I don't want this to be true. Yeah. I don't want to have these results be tainted in any way. Let Michigan continue with its 2 wins the last 2 years against Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the rivalry is better for it, right? Better for Michigan having a little bit of a run.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but
you think a rivalry is great when one side wins all but one game?
But I'm more invested in my team winning than having a good rivalry. And I have more respect and investment in this rivalry than practically anyone on the planet. So I'm right there with.
I say that in every single year when the game happens. I mean, I feel like I would cut off an appendage to see Ohio State win each year. I'm like, I get that into it.
Yes,
I don't care about the history of the rivalry at all at that point.
Okay, it is certainly lessened for me to a certain extent, but it's still the most important game. And again, I grew up with that rivalry, and would have my son and I watching all the Ohio State games and watching that game in particular. Now he was taught and he was instructed and told about how great that rivalry is, but all he saw was Ohio State kick Michigan's ass. And so he would tell me every year, and I would show him the pregame and everything and all the hype and the hype videos and all of that to show the history. And this is obviously just different. And he'd be like, Michigan State's tougher than they are, and Wisconsin's better than they are. Who cares? He's like, those are bigger rivals to me than Michigan is. So even when Ohio State was in the midst of all those wins, there was still great buildup to that game, more so than any other game in the season. So for me, I don't want to lose that game. So I'd rather have Ohio State win 50 years in a row.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's me.
Definitely don't want to. I mean, even when Michigan's 5-6 going into that game, there's still always this anticipation.
Absolutely.
This anxiety.
I remember when I was first hired at ESPN, one of my trainers was a huge, enormous Michigan fan. And he actually made a similar statement that you did, because that was in 2001, and that was prior to Jim Tressel's first team winning against Michigan, and Michigan winning 10 out of 12 against Cooper and having a nice run. And he was like, this isn't much of a rivalry. We kind of feel sorry for you guys and would like to see, it would be good if Ohio State won sometime.
Well, the interesting thing is I think you can contrast those two runs that each of them had during that, was it from 01 to 2021, Michigan beat them twice during that time. One of them being the Fickle years. Ohio State unquestionably had a far superior program during that time.
Yes.
Like that seemed like a reasonable outcome that they would win close to that amount of time.
Yes. There were only a handful of, not even a handful of times that you could argue that Michigan was as good or even in the ballpark. Yes.
Yes. And during that Cooper run, Ohio State probably had the better team the majority of the time.
Yes.
Later
in the Cooper run, the back half of the Cooper run.
There were 3 times they were undefeated. Like 3 times in 4 years, they won every game leading up to the Michigan game.
Yes.
And then they lost to Michigan teams that had lost 3 games or more.
Yes.
Going into that point. I mean, those were like my earliest memories, those 95, 96 games. And I know, looking back, they were like 20-point favorites going into those games.
Yeah, I'm much older than you.
They blew.
I believe in 96, they were a 17-point favorite. That's as high as that got.
Okay.
But during the first part of Cooper's tenure, Michigan was a pretty substantial favorite up until 92, the 92 game they were. And then starting in 93 is when Ohio State obviously took off.
Yep. Awesome.
All right, Sean.
Yep. You have a great one, Mark.
You too. Thanks. Sure. We will keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. People have asked in the chat whether they can call. Yes, you can call. We will take one other in addition to who's in line here. We got JR. Please tune me down in the background. Hello, JR. You there? Hello? Going once? Twice? All right. We got David Greenshields here.
Wow. Well, what a tangled web we weave, Mark Rogers.
Somebody likes this. Somebody's enjoying this.
What a tangled web we weave when at first we practice to deceive. Oh, Mark, my heart bleeds. My heart bleeds. I was late, but I had to stop at a Best Buy and pick up some recording equipment, Mark. A friend of mine was going to give me some discounts. I have a couple of tickets to some Big Ten games this weekend. I figure I'm going to run some videos this weekend. I figure I can do that. Stand next to the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator in the biggest game of the year and whisper sweet nothings in their ear, during that game. And you know what? Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Perfectly legal, above board. Right, Mark?
Oh, man, you just give me a clip right there. We can just clip that off.
You can tell that to Matt Foley, the motivational speaker. I mean, Steve Dace, if you want to. But I heard his
Did you hear Dace last night?
Yeah, I heard his little soliloquy. Yeah, I loved his little. I loved his little
Fired
"woe is me" against the world. The NCAA's out to get us. That's about as old as old. Like every
I
program in the history of programs has used that line,
I
Mark. Let's
wasn't
just be real here.
expecting that. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was not expecting him to
Yeah.
be that over the top. Like, this is BS.
I mean, he drew that card from like the bottom of the deck, I think. You know what I mean? He's like, the world's out to get us. The world's out to get us. And I'm not saying every program's done it. I mean, even Ohio State has played that card before. They have. I'm not going to be real with you, but that's, you know what? You Katie bar the door. You just basically say, let's close ranks. And you know what? Hey, maybe this is a motivational factor for them. Maybe this is something that they can use to get amped up and as a motivational factor, like Dace was saying. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Mark.
There was one aspect of this that I didn't get to yesterday because he opened the Michigan podcast today, the segment that he brought me in, and he said, folks, you may want to check it out. Mark and I had a discussion and we traded comments on the scandal, and I threw up my hand and I said, Steve, that was no discussion. That was not a discussion. And we were not trading points back and forth. I said, that was your rant completely. And he's like, fair enough. And
yeah.
I was, and then he wanted to move on to football. So we did. So it's, of course, his podcast. And I appreciate that he brings me on every week. So I had to honor that. Otherwise, I wanted to say to him, Steve, is there not such a thing as cheating? If there is a rule in play, regardless of how bad you think the rule is, or that the rule should not exist, if it can be proven that whomever, individual or team, organization, broke the rule, and that rule is designed in such a way where it is a competitive factor, there is a competitive factor, meaning you break the rule to gain an advantage. That is the essence of competitive cheating. And why would anyone cheat? There is only one reason you cheat, and that's to gain an advantage to ensure a win.
I mean, this coming from a guy, I mean, I do find it interesting that this coach was dead man walking a few years ago. Even Mr. Dace, when you had to be his shoulder to cry on there over that period of time, you were his therapist there for a few episodes, I think, Mark, was putting out lists of new coaches and counting down the days of the end of the Harbaugh era, which he did. We can go back and watch the podcast from 2020 and even 2021 after the Sparty loss. He was saying it was the end of the Harbaugh era. So, I mean, I find it interesting. Now, I'm not going to say that this, with or without this cheating, who knows if the game goes differently. I'm not saying that. The last two Ohio State teams have had weaknesses on defense that were exploited by other teams. And maybe that at the end of the day, they were just able to exploit those weaknesses. And that was the case. But Mark, I mean, there's all the underpinnings here of it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, Mark. I mean, you know the rest of the saying. I mean, if you've got a guy, I mean, what's this guy's name? What is it? Stallion? Connor Stallion?
Connor Stallions.
Jeez, I thought that was. I thought he was in Boogie Nights or something. I don't know what's going on there. Is that like Dirk Diggler's brother or something? Connor Stallion. Connor the Stallion. Give me a break. I mean, what is going on here? I mean, he's got some covert operative, probably on the payroll. He's getting tickets to go to Big Ten games. By the way, according to Thamel, they went to the SEC title game. I don't know if you read that as well, Mark.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so they're going to those games.
That was
apparently.
effective.
You know what would have been helpful is if they would have made it to that Big 12 title game last year. And maybe watch TCU play. That might have helped them out a little bit.
We are seeing that they attended games of possible playoff opponents.
Yeah. Apparently not enough deep dive. Apparently they didn't get the Stallion to the Big 12 title game. Apparently he couldn't make the flight. I mean, this thing is... Oh, geez. I mean, and the guys on the sideline, they have pictures on them literally talking to Moore and talking to Jesse Minter on the sideline during the Ohio State game.
Yeah.
I mean, you tell me what's going on there. You know, just a fan of the program on the sideline, talking to the offensive coordinator and nothing in defensive coordinator. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. I don't know if Dace have that in his 15 points, by the way. I didn't get a chance to see his little soliloquy.
And I don't know if this is common that analysts are on the sideline, because the analysts are not supposed to be in any way coaching the players. So I would not think that it would be common for the analysts to be on the sideline, because then there would be the temptation for analysts to be coaching the players. So they're not allowed to do that. So then why would they be on the sideline? And I'm not saying that that doesn't go on elsewhere, but I thought the analysts were watching from the booth or somewhere else.
Well, no, I mean, you got to have him on the sideline. He needs to relay that information, Mark. You know what I mean? So they can write down plays and make notes. Mark, I mean, listen, you know what? I'm going to say something right now. If I was ranking top 10 teams, I have no problem with ranking them number one right now with the way they've been playing. I know they've played Cupcake Central and like the 70-something record, but I've always said, if you're going to play a cupcake schedule, at least destroy the cupcakes. And to be fair to them, they've been destroying the cupcakes, no doubt about it. And I give them credit for doing it in an impressive way. And I would have no problem if they were ranking a poll that they would be number one. Now, I still think Ohio State's top 2 or 3. In a Mark Rogers that makes sense based on your criteria, I would see why you would have the Buckeyes number one, you know, with the emphasis you put on, you know, quality opponents and quality victories. But, you know, this, I tell you what, Mark, now I don't think this is SMU part 2. I mean, I'm not going to go that far, Mark. I mean, are you, you have some thoughts? I guess, yeah, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I'm not going to go there.
So my soliloquy on cheating is that cheating, as I just mentioned to you, there is only one purpose in cheating, and that's to change the result of the expected outcome.
Right.
So that's a horrendous and horrible thing. And I know it seems ridiculous because the argument is, well, they didn't really need to cheat. And don't you think that they were better than all these teams? Then don't do it. So to me, the argument about the need to cheat, the effect of the cheating, the impact, to me is completely irrelevant. That
right.
I shouldn't, if I'm judge and jury of this, shouldn't have to try to determine, okay, well, did you really need to? And then study the Rutgers offense and defense to figure out how good are they or bad are they, that you would have beaten them by this or not. No, you cheated. And so why did you cheat? Well, you cheat to change a result of an outcome. So, but that's not going to be how it's ruled. I know that I'm a contrarian and I'm an outlier when it comes to that, but I would just, you cheated, you're done. You know, we're negating wins, you're done.
Listen, and I know that, listen, I actually think if they get any penalty, I think it would be only for previous to. Now, the thing that would be interesting is if they were found to do this in the previous games this season. Now, if they were found to do that this season in previous games, and I don't know if that's come out yet, then that's a big time problem.
Well, you know, it's come out that they had tickets for the Ohio State Penn State game and they were not used. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not curious. And then, yeah, about the previous games played, that would be interesting. But this is not going to all be settled by the time that we get to the end of this regular season, and there are determinations about playoffs and all of that.
I have a feeling that this would be penalty after the fact. I tend to agree with you, Mark, that this would be try to if worst case would be try to wipe away 21 or 22 or do something as far as that, which I still think is you know, kind of worthless. I know, you know, they're obviously they've put all their eggs into this basket. That's why all those 4th and 5th round draft choices decided to come back to college. Seriously, Mark, what round would Blake Corum have gone in the NFL draft?
I'm not well, I love the NFL draft, but I'm out of that game in
terms
of following where
4th,
they were. Yeah, I don't
third.
think he would have been drafted high. No.
No, I mean, he's not Zeke Elliott. He's not leaving to go to the NFL because he's that good. Let's be fair. He's not. He's a 4th-round pick who's a good college running back. And hey, if he serves their purposes and is a good college running back and puts up good numbers, maybe he plays himself into a 2nd or 3rd-round draft pick. Good for him. But, I mean, there's a reason guys leave early if they're going to be 1st round or at least fairly higher picks normally. Right,
well,
Mark?
they do now. Now that they've got that information to know when they're going to be drafted. Yes, we saw that before where players made all sorts of bad mistakes. But since they've had that draft prospectus and they have that feedback from the personnel directors, yes. I was looking for a comment somebody left in the chat.
Yeah,
there is no way. They stated that Michigan has had 17 more players drafted since 2020 than Ohio State. There's no way.
I have to see that.
No.
I mean,
well,
I want to see a breakdown of that. I would love to see a breakdown of that.
I'm going to look it up right now.
I mean, first of all, a lot of their draft picks have been very lower round draft picks. I mean, how many 1st-round draft picks have they been producing? Really? I mean, anybody worthwhile that's usually going to be a contributor in the NFL is going to go within the first 2 or 3 rounds of the draft. Now, I mean, obviously they've got the ultimate outlier of all time coming out of their program that went late in the draft. But normally 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round draft picks are usually. Now, I say as an Ohio State fan, I thought that Whippler and Jones should have come back to college. Kind of wish that they would have because their draft status was kind of lower than I thought it would be. But, they chose to come out early and went lower in the draft. But it was used to be typical that a lot of players wouldn't only come out early if they were at least going to go within the first 3 rounds of the draft.
Or so they thought.
Or so they
didn't
thought.
have that information.
Right.
But now they do. Ohio State since 2020 has had 32 NFL draft selections and 9 in the 1st round.
Yeah. I guarantee you that compares favorably nationally with a lot of folks.
And we'll see what Michigan's. I should be able to count the 1st rounders rather quickly because there's not many.
No, there's not. There's not 9. I'll tell you that much.
Try 5 1st rounders.
Okay.
And then
That's
we've
solid.
got. Ooh, it's an exact tie with 32. So they both had 32 players drafted. Ohio State 9 in the 1st round, Michigan 5. So I don't know where that person's coming from. I have no idea. And that's much closer than it's been in 25 years.
Right. Well, they had some good players get drafted off that 21 team, like a Jabo and Hutchinson, I believe, both went in the 1st round, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's 2 of their, 5 1st-round draft picks, I know. And Smith last year, I know, was one of their 1st-round draft picks. So, yeah, I think I will just say whatever punishment they get, I firmly believe is going to be for past grievances. I will say this. Could you see a Pete Carroll exit strategy here, Mark? What do you think?
Oh, sure. If Jim Harbaugh has been as close as he's been to flirting with the NFL and contemplating it, this might be the last straw. This might be whether it's because he truly feels heat and that I got to get out of here. I don't want to deal with the ramifications of all this, or if it's just simply, you know what, this whole NCAA business is just a nuisance and I'm tired of dealing with them. Screw them. I'm out of here. I'm done. Sure.
Do you know what this does, Mark? This could make for the most interesting game coming up in the history of this rivalry. Think about that for a second, especially if both teams continue on their path. With all this smoke, with the last couple years, both teams undefeated. Wow. How many Mark Rogers videos are we going to have that week? You're going to have you're going to be running a video like a every 15 minutes or something.
Any idea I can come up with that you guys can feed me, we'll hit it.
That thing's going to be like, that week will be fire. I will tell you that much.
That will be. Michigan's going to win like 45-9.
Yeah, Wolf, give me 36 points right now. I'll Venmo you tomorrow.
Yes.
Tomorrow. I mean, I know. First of all, I heard one TTUN fan say this is 2016, 2019, or 2016 Alabama, 2019 LSU had a baby. So they're already speaking hyperbole up there.
Well, with those two teams, we at least knew at this point in the season that was the case. But with the Michigan team, we just know they're capable of smacking around Minnesota and Rutgers.
Sure. Well, you give them time, they'll make out Roman Wilson to be better than Marvin Harrison. They'll probably do that. No. Well, no, that's too much. He's Calvin Johnson and Jerry Rice had a baby. He's that good. They're living in their own universe right now. I get it. High times. Just it's amazing though what you can accomplish with a Best Buy account nowadays, and a guy named Connor Stallions on your payroll.
We've got our guy,
the Rod Farva here.
Screen there. There we go. Most NFL players by school: Bama, Ohio State, LSU, Georgia, Florida, Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State, Clemson, OU, Texas, UCLA is always a surprising one, and Iowa.
Yes. And as I've always said, Ohio State's produced the most first-round draft picks in the history of college football.
Yes.
Now, I can also say that as an indictment, and people would always swing that back on me and says, well, you should have won more. And I'd be the first to say we should have won more with all those first-round draft picks. That's kind of our wont for a number of years. But, boy, you know what? I think that a November 25th date is going to be awfully interesting coming up this year, Mark.
Well, it always is, but you are right. For you folks that get into drama and allegations and all that, yes, this will fuel the fire. This will fuel the fire. I don't know, how can the intensity of this matchup, especially between the fan bases, get any hotter?
Well, especially with it being, Harbaugh's last game in Ann Arbor, I think it would maybe, offer them a motivational factor going into that game. You know what I mean? Probably get them really fired up and amped up. So, like I said, I'm not, what Dace was saying about this being like a rallying cry and a motivational factor for them. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that for 1 second, that this becomes like something that they can kind of, rally around.
Yes, Michigan against the world.
Yeah, like that's not a common refrain for like every program. If I had a nickel for every time a college football program played the disrespect card, I'd be, Jeff Bezos, or something.
Yes, well, Michigan has not been in this position for forever.
Yeah, and it's hard. Their fan base act like you've been there before. Well, I'm sorry, you haven't been there before, so you don't know how to act like it, I guess. Such is the case.
Yes. I, of course, have to reserve to a certain extent here, David, because we have a large Michigan contingent. We've got to be good to our customers.
So I've heard, Mark. So I've heard. Too many kids dropped on their heads as children in this chat. That's all I know, Mark.
I don't know if that was your experience in high school. We had way too many Michigan fans in my high school. I was like, what is wrong with these people?
Well, listen, like in that time frame of like, because I'm 46, it was like that late 80s, early 90s time frame. They were hot, They had the Fab Five. Well, how'd that work out for you? They were doing wrong things too, I guess. But as a program, see, Dace asked that question once. When was the last time the team up north was ahead of Ohio State as a program? And that's simple. The first 5 years of the John Cooper era.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, from 88 to 92,
Yes, 92. Exactly. That's the last time that now Michigan fans will come back and say, well, we had a better record this year. But no, as a program, the last time that Michigan was clearly ahead of Ohio State was the season that culminated with the great tie
Yeah.
10,
Gordon
10
Key
tie.
called it the greatest
10 tie,
victory.
13-13. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
Was that horrible or what?
Just a gut punch. That just was just a pit in my stomach that this guy would be this flimsy and this much of a wuss to be happy with a tie. Yeah.
Kirk Herbstreit and Robert Smith couldn't quite pull it out in the fourth quarter.
No.
Yeah.
Kirk Herbstreit walked off that field. He was bawling his eyes out.
Yeah. I still wonder if Cooper would have lost that game and gone 0 for 5. I always felt he was very close to the X coming. Mm-hmm. I still don't think if he would have gotten that victory in 94, which is his first win, he might have gotten the X.
Yeah, that might have done it because they were embarrassed at Penn State, of course. Mm-hmm. And that was really the game that saved that season, even though it was an ugly record. 9-4.
Yep.
And they blew the game against Alabama, there's another bowl game in which an Alabama team that came within 1 point of playing for the national championships playing Ohio State.
It was a 3-loss team. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, those were the days.
I think it's going to be an interesting. I think this thing just carries on, though, Mark. Just your bottom line. You think this carries on for a while, and it just, we get more and more stuff. Or I don't know what your inclination on how this looks moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think in any way that we're going to be at a conclusion to this by the end of the season.
Well, yeah, I don't think so.
I don't believe so.
No. It will be interesting to see the new information that comes out moving forward here.
Yes.
So. Hey, if you could ever get one last thing, try to get an exclusive with Connor Stallion. See if you can't get him on the show. Maybe you can put him on the show and his voice can be muzzled like he's a mob guy or something, Mark. Or, you can put him in a covering of black there so you can't really see him. If you could work an exclusive with Stallion somewhere.
Now. I wonder if he's on Twitter.
Try and reach out, Mark. Get the Stallions on there.
Connor Stallions. Bingo.
Yeah.
Has to be him. Connor Stallions, University of Michigan football, linebackers, Naval Academy.
There you go.
The guy.
Right.
I'm surprised his Twitter account has not just blown up, but I'm guessing. No, he was tweeting as recent as October 23rd this year. This guy's only got 84 followers. I would think just because of this that people would be, unless this is I don't think it's a spoof account because, I don't think so.
Dude.
Because I don't think anyone could post those things.
You want to get views and subscriptions up on Mark Rogers TV? Get the Stallion on the show, Mark. And I would love to see that interview. Oh, man. That'd be one for the books.
Yes. That would be something else. What is this guy thinking? I don't know. I think, let's say there is, let's take this path that Jim Harbaugh has no idea that this went on. This was a rogue activity. There are people out there, and this is usually a part of these type scandals at universities with big football programs, that there are hangers on that just want to be important. They just want to be, and we know before he actually became a member of the football team that he was chasing, the team across the country, going to games, staying at the team hotel, and just a hanger on.
Wow. And now he's on the sideline talking offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators. He's living the life. Somebody's got to get a hold of those bank accounts too, Mark. You got to get a hold of those bank accounts. Maybe he's got something going on in Zurich somewhere. You never know.
Yes.
All right.
All right, David.
Good stuff, Mark.
Appreciate you being here.
As the world turns.
That's it.
Take care, buddy.
Have a good night. And we will keep it going here at the Voice of College Football. We've got the Michigan man here.
What's up, Mark? What's going on, man?
Not too much. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Let's get something straight. He 100% scattered these games, okay? I haven't been listening to the show, but too much. But he 100% scouted these games. Real quick, for people that aren't familiar with because I've read the bylaws extensively, you are actually allowed to scout in person CFP potential championship opponents and teams that aren't on your schedule. So all the playoff teams, So all the playoff teams, it's one of the exemptions in Article 11 that you're actually allowed to. Yeah, so you're allowed to scout the. That's crazy that that's even still up. You're allowed to scout the conference championship and the playoff games. Because it's not considered it's one considered a championship game. I don't know why that's an exemption in there, but it is something that a lot of people on the internet aren't familiar with. Secondly, there's no way this guy's affording this, man. How is he affording this? Like, how are you affording the SEC title game? How are you affording? This is the biggest mystery to me right now. Is how are you affording all these tickets? And we're just talking tickets. We don't know if it goes further.
People have money, and he may be independently wealthy.
He might be because he's supposedly, like I've mentioned before, he was going to every game, away game, and maybe he really is a CIA spy or something, man. Maybe he got that CIA money. I don't know, but I don't know. I've heard some things. I don't know. It hasn't been really reported. This is from like Michigan message boards, but I'm not gonna say which ones, obviously. But supposedly the NCAA is going to be having a meeting at Michigan within the week. I'm gonna throw that out there.
So you're drawing a conclusion that this could be wrapped up sooner than I thought. This was going to take a while, and I thought
I'm not saying it's going to be wrapped up. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is they could. What this would happen? They could meet and give a notice of allegations. That's a possibility. They can meet and discuss the evidence that they might have, and discuss, kind of like confer what the school has. They show them what they have. It could be something like that. It could be a bunch of things. It doesn't mean it's wrapping up. It could be a meeting over a bunch of different things. But from what I've read, supposedly that there's supposed to be a meeting soon. And also, the biggest player here is actually the Big Ten, believe it or not. The Big Ten can choose to act on this at any time if they wanted to, before the NCAA.
Yeah, I picked up on that.
So that's another thing. They could act on it at any point. But what I read is they still want to wait to see more before they do. But people got to keep in mind, they don't have to wait for the investigation to end. If they feel like there was enough, or if the schools come together, there's another thing. What if all the schools come together and they don't like what's going on? What does the Big Ten do then?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things here that I don't know have been discussed on the show yet. Little nuances that people haven't discussed. And at the end of the day, if the NCAA decides to infer that the rules were broken, and maybe they weren't broken to the letter of the law, because from my understanding of contract law, you can only apply it between the two parties of the contract. You can't apply it to random people. You'd have to prove agency at that point. You'd have to approve. Gotcha. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So at that point, does the school take the SEC route and threaten to dispute the contract law on a court level, which they could also do, which SEC schools have done, and the NCAA backs off.
Mm.
What are your thoughts with all that?
Well, I think that that the Big Ten ganging up on Michigan, whether that came from the commissioner's office or comes from the schools, man, if it gets to that point, then you're talking about bad blood going into the future, because, man, Michigan is one of the paramount schools academically and athletically in this conference. And I think that the Big Ten, man, I would be slightly surprised and also feel as though the Big Ten is really taking this seriously if they are going to act against one of its paramount schools.
Yeah,
Because
and
then
when I
that,
say that, it's just a possibility.
yeah. No, I
I'm
hear
not
you.
saying that that's yeah.
No, I
Um,
didn't quite draw that conclusion as you spelled it out, but in reading through the couple articles I read through before and since we've been on the air, and seeing Tony Petiti commenting, and there, the Thamel reporting and the Schlabach reporting, kind of inferring that, yeah, the Big Ten could intervene and get into this. And then based on how you framed it, I thought, wow, they're taking a big step if they're going to create that kind of division between themselves and one of their big money
oh,
schools.
100%. And I'm not and clear to be clear, they didn't say they were going to do that. I'm saying
Yeah.
that that's a
Yes,
possibility.
I know. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Just to make that clear.
And that's why I say I don't think it'll happen, but if it does, that is a big statement. That
yeah,
is huge.
because the conference is only as powerful as the schools within it.
Yes, exactly. And this is one of the two that, more than anyone else, rule the athletic landscape and the football landscape. Even if the schools go to the Big Ten and say, hey, we are demanding something harsh here, that of course puts the Big Ten in a bad place. But I would think that even the Big Ten would try to do everything possible to appease the other schools and say, hey, just back off. We'll make this right to a certain extent, but we could not, cut off one of our major partners here.
Oh, 100%. The one thing I am surprised about is that this guy is not fired yet.
Yeah.
I am a little surprised by that.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
We know that.
I feel like there's enough there.
Yeah. Take the Pat Fitzgerald example. It went from within like hours, he's being investigated, to he's being suspended, to, 3 hours later, he's fired.
Yeah, I'm surprised because I feel like there's enough there. Do you?
Yeah. I
just from an optics standpoint.
Yes. And that would show that Michigan, that would at least give the appearance that, okay, he did some things that they were not a part of. And so just by suspending him, yeah, I agree with you there.
It's a little weird, right?
Yeah, it is.
I wonder, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but I wonder if there is a little bit of, hey, look, did we bend the rules? Yes. But let's wait and see if the NCAA can actually do something about the way we bent the rule.
Yeah, I think that there's a belief that we know whatever we did, and I'm not speculating on how far it was taken, but we do know what the facts are, at least, and we don't know how many more there are to come out. But that Michigan's in a position to say, we know what we've done, but we only think part of this is able to be proven.
Yeah, I feel
so we're pretty confident that only a portion of this can be proven, and we're going to get a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, and honestly, look, this is the one problem with, and maybe it's not even a problem. Well, I'll say this: all Michigan fans and all Michigan people that like to claim moral superiority, that's dead in the water at this point. The whole moral superiority thing, like we don't operate like SEC. Look, it's out the window. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I don't. Well, yeah, I really just can't believe anyone that claims that nowadays. So, and
yeah,
sure,
but we know
that some schools and some programs abide by more rules than others, but there's some degree of bending of the rules, if not cheating, everywhere to some degree.
Oh, 100%. The last caller that commented on the Ohio State thing, don't read into that. I don't even think there's really much to that. That's a
Oh, about
that
the coaches at the Notre Dame game.
yeah, that's a lot of speculation at this point. It's really just a Venmo thing at this point. And even then, the only way they would have broken that rule in that situation is if they use electronic equipment on the field or or if they transmit it from the stands to the sideline. That would break the rule, but so far, I mean, there's really nothing to that. So I wouldn't even look into that. You know, can you hear
All
me?
right, man. You are digging in on this.
All right, man. I'm on top of it, man. I've been reading deep on it.
No, I appreciate it.
I'm like a sideline reporter right now.
Absolutely, you are. You are.
So
And I would like to be a little bit better informed, but shoot, I've been recording since 1:00 this afternoon, so we're trying to cover all the games and all of that. So I appreciate
I'll
you
let you
coming
go,
on
man.
here and digging in on all this.
No doubt. Have a good one.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, we will take our final two. We got Landon on the line. Landon, what's going on tonight?
Not much, Mark. Thanks for letting me come on, buddy.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience. I appreciate that.
No, not a problem. One quick question, and then a couple things to sort of pick your mind about. And I'm hopping on a little late. I had some work to finish up, so I'm sorry ahead of time if you've already addressed this on the show tonight. But do you know what the committee does in terms of NCAA violations or things concerning Michigan? That if they found that they were breaking rules this season, something along those lines, would the committee still reject them, allow them to come in? Do you know the interaction as far as that goes?
The College Football Playoff Committee?
Yes, sir.
I believe, I cannot state this 100% for sure, but I'm almost certain that the committee simply deals with the teams that are eligible, and as long as they are eligible, they have no oversight over making any kind of judgment calls on who's cheating and who's not and who's under investigation. There have been all sorts of programs throughout the playoff 9 years history of the playoff that have been under investigation during playoff selections that they did not in any way make some kind of moral determination on that they're going to impact their rankings.
Okay. So unless the NCAA makes a decision, as if they would make a decision that quickly concerning this year, the committee just assumes keep things rolling until this is settled. If they find,
yes.
Okay.
And even if the NCAA came out and said Michigan did A, B, and C wrong, but we consider it a minor violation, a level 2 violation, I may be getting the levels juxtaposed, but a lower level, and we're taking away scholarships next season and we're giving them a $1 million fine, but it doesn't impact Michigan's eligibility for postseason play, then the playoff committee would continue to judge Michigan and evaluate them as they would anyone else.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that, buddy.
Sure.
I wanted to tackle a couple things you mentioned on the Michigan podcast. I would take a little different view from where you take your comment concerning Georgia. I really think there is a notion of defending your championship. I think until somebody beats you, especially if you're at a Power 5 program, and I think especially if you're the most talented roster in football, you don't have to be number one. You don't have to be number two. But I do think until somebody beats you, you need to be in the top 4 somehow. I think you do have a right to defend your title, even though it's not like your one-to-one correlation with boxing. It's not exactly like that, but I do think there is something to that, man, that until somebody knocks them off the throne, if they keep winning, I would think they would deserve to defend their title. All things being equal, it would take an extreme example, right? Especially if for the most part, you've got a lot of the roster in place that's been a part of those years, even into this year, the coaching staff. If it was a situation like Colorado, right? Like, let's just say Colorado won the national title last year, and this year they've got 84 new players, a whole new coaching staff, whatever. Maybe then you consider tweaking things a bit, but I'm of the mindset you deserve to defend your title, man.
So let me lay out a scenario, and I don't disagree with you on these points, and I will get to them. Let's say every Power 5 champion is undefeated. So somebody has to be left out.
Right.
But Georgia is one of those undefeated teams that you would just give them a pass, wouldn't even need to evaluate them, and just say they're in. Now we're going to have to look at the other 4 conferences.
When you word it like that, kind of extreme, I suppose if they had literally won every game by 1 point, including Vanderbilt or their a group of 5, I mean, I suppose. But just what they did to Kentucky alone, which a lot of the media has gotten wrong, they actually were a ranked opponent. They have beat a ranked opponent this year at the time they played them, which is the difference between strength of schedule and strength of record. But what they've done to Kentucky alone is enough to show what they are capable of, like shows what their ceiling is. So they've earned enough credibility at that point. And then obviously if they win out, they're going to face LSU, Ole Miss, or Alabama for the conference championship. That win alone is going to be as equivalent to anything that happens in any other conference. So yeah, they would have earned it. Like there is no, they wouldn't earn it based on their schedule. Now, I would say right now, kind of jumping into a little bit of the next, if the committee was to release the top 4 today, based on what's happened so far, it's really not a mystery and it's really not arbitrary. It is based off of scoring efficiency, offensive, defensive. It's based on strength of record, strength of schedule, team talent composite, or blue chip ratio and scoring margin. Those are the factors that they utilize. And I honestly think if the committee was to release it today, Georgia would be 5. They would be sitting outside the top 4. You'd have Ohio State 1, Florida State 2. And I haven't peeled the numbers back to see how they would sort Oklahoma and Washington. I have a hunch Washington would be 3 and Oklahoma 4. But I got to be honest, I haven't really dug the numbers deep enough to get into it. But I think if the committee released it today, however, as a guy who thinks the committee's never got it wrong, I would make Georgia 4 and I would squeeze out Oklahoma in that scenario if the playoff had to start today, just as an example.
I just want to clarify a few things, Landon. Number one, you said you don't believe that the committee has ever gotten it wrong.
Correct.
Okay. I'm not debating that. I would have made a couple possible different decisions. I don't like the idea of a committee. I don't think there should be a committee. Now there's a difference between not liking the committee in this format and thinking the committee's done a bad job. I don't believe that they've done a bad job. I just don't like the committee format. Then your other point was, okay, you just lined up based on all those criteria, what you believe the rankings would look like from the committee right now.
Yeah.
So between right now and when the first rankings are released a week from tonight, Michigan will have played no other games. And you don't believe that they're going to be in the top 6?
They would be 6. They would be right behind Georgia.
They would be 6th. You think Michigan's going to be no higher than 6th in their first rankings? Do you?
I think so. Especially after next week when Georgia plays Florida, just to add to a stronger schedule. I guess depending on some of the numbers, but yeah, shadow boxing, nobody. I think they don't have a signature road win. Their first 4 games were at home. The committee values that highly, a signature road win. That's incredibly valuable. And Michigan just doesn't have that to any degree at all. Not that Georgia has a massive one either, but that's where a neutral site game against Florida would help them out. But I think even if they released it today, yeah, Georgia would be 5 and Michigan would be 6.
What would Georgia's road win be of any consequence? Auburn?
Yeah. I mean, it would
could equate that to Michigan going to Minnesota.
A little bit. There is something magical about the Plains. I don't know what it is. That wrecks people sometimes.
I understand that, but in regards to Minnesota and Auburn, they're roughly the same team this year.
Well, in a sense, except team talent composite, Auburn's got a top 15 roster. Minnesota got a top 30.
To that degree, I don't know if the committee's making those kind of judgments. Now, in addition to all the metrics you laid out, we know that they also buy into the eyeball test, and that's why they have coaches and just generally coaches in the room to provide that. And that's going to heavily weigh toward Michigan, I think.
I don't think it would over Georgia.
No, just as being elevated higher than you're saying.
I mean, but who are you going to squeeze out to put them in? Like who do you replace at that point? Because again, their strength of schedule, strength of record is nowhere near the top 4 teams we're talking about, and I don't think it's even. Again, Georgia beating Kentucky alone is better than anything Michigan's done. I mean, because that's a ranked win. Michigan doesn't even have that.
Yeah,
so
but as
there's
it
really
currently
nothing.
Stands, Kentucky's get the same record as Rutgers does.
Yeah,
so just because they're ranked.
But yeah, well, I mean, yes and no. All 5 and 2s aren't created equal.
And that doesn't mean that the committee is ranking Kentucky. That means the AP ranked Kentucky.
Yeah. Yeah, at the time they played, of course. And again, that's the difference between strength of record, strength of schedule. So, for example, when LSU beat Missouri, they weren't ranked, and now they are. So if somebody beats Missouri, LSU's strength of schedule wouldn't be as good as their strength of record would end up being if Missouri could hold, kind of thing. So, I mean, it's my understanding they actually do consider those things. They consider injury reports. They look at, if Quentin Ewers is hurt, it's different if you beat Texas now than when Oklahoma did.
Sure.
That does carry greater value. So, I just at this point, there's not. I don't think there's anybody else to squeeze out, even though I think that's what the committee would do. This is where I guess my emotions are overriding it. I do think Georgia does deserve to defend their title. I would put them in at 4. And like I said, I would probably squeeze out Oklahoma in favor of Washington. I think Ohio State and Florida State are pretty secure at 1 and 2 based off of their strength of schedule, strength of record, their performance. They both have really good rosters. Certainly Ohio State does. But you're getting down to when you're talking about these last 4 teams. I mean, unfortunately, Michigan's on the outside looking in, man. And they only have themselves to blame. They're the ones that took UCLA off the schedule. So it's their own fault.
So for me, Landon, there's a difference between me having a conversation with somebody and believing that and me disagreeing with them because I believe that their point is completely irrational, illogical. They don't know what they're talking about. And me disagreeing with somebody and saying, I think you have a great insight into this. You're logical, you're reasonable, but I still don't necessarily completely agree with that. So this is where we stand on this. I think you've done a lot of insight into this and done a lot of homework. And so I completely understand your point about Georgia. And I think it's reasonable, logical, but I still would rather see. Now, let's state out front that I would want to see any team that's undefeated in a playoff. And that's why when the 14 playoff was instituted, I thought it was an improvement over the 2-team BCS format, just because it afforded 2 other worthy teams an opportunity. But I didn't think that remedied the situation because there are 5 conferences plus Notre Dame. So I don't think it's a remedy, and never have thought it was a great system, but it's better than the old system. But I would still want the committee to look at every team's merits based on 2023 and that alone, because that's the season we are playing.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, yeah. I guess.
But it would be horrible. I would hate to have a Georgia team that's won back-to-back national championships, and many of the guys in that locker room played on those teams, and they did everything they could this year. They won every game, and say, nope, you didn't make it. You're not in the playoff.
Well, and because they've proven it, that's another issue. We could go back to the Cincinnati example of
they didn't prove it this year, though. The previous teams proved it. Yes.
I mean, but again, this goes back to the coaching staff and things within the program as kind of a baked into the cake.
Yeah.
Right. Like I said, if we use the Colorado example at that point, then it is such a new thing we're looking at. You would have to make completely different considerations at that point. And again, if that was an example this year, as what you're saying, you had 5, which hasn't happened. My knowledge before 1975 is certainly not the best. I don't think there's ever been 5 undefeated Power 5 conference champions at the end of the year. So we're always arguing over teams that didn't handle their business at some point in time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no. Anyway, okay, buddy. Hey, man, I appreciate the exchange, and
Absolutely.
yeah, I heard those two you said on there, and I just thought, well, I'll throw a little bit of a different take on that, man.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
All right, thank you, buddy.
I appreciate it, Landon. Have a good
Yes,
night.
sir. You too, bud.
Good call there from Landon. Good calls all together, folks. Appreciate you being here at Voice of College Football. We've got an SEC channel. Please look it up. Unless you want to wait, and I'll drop the link in the chat. But please, we are providing content on the Big 12 and the SEC on those two channels, and they just launched about 6 weeks ago, and we need to push them forward. So please subscribe to the SEC channel and also the Big 12 channel. Actually, those links are in the description section of every video right at the top. So please subscribe there. Shoot. Boy, I recorded segments the last 2 days on Clemson, Tennessee, Georgia, Kentucky. Who else? My goodness, a few other teams that I can't even remember. So those videos will be coming out. My intent is to clear the deck on this national channel and just make this analysis that we do on the playoffs and rankings and ratings and all of that national topics, and keep the team perspective and the team previews on those channels. But sometimes it just makes sense to see how you guys will respond. And some of our channels obviously are small and don't get much viewership. And so I'm constantly making those decisions on, well, if I don't have enough content here, then we're going to provide. And again, we've got all those teams plus more coming up. Let's see, it's Wednesday. So on Wednesday, we've got Ohio State live at 11 Eastern. We've got Oklahoma live at 12:30 Eastern. We've got Florida State live at 6, Miami live at 7. We've got West Virginia live at 8. We've got Oregon live at 10 Eastern time. All those on those specific team channels. And again, about 60 or 65% of you are not subscribed. So please subscribe to the channel. And we enjoy everyone here at the Voice of College Football. A Schraub, thank you so much for your contribution and for being here. And please like the video. That means something. It doesn't mean anything to me. If we had like 0 likes and 10,000 views, that would be great. But YouTube judges that. And if it's a low ratio of likes to views, they say people didn't like that video. So we're not going to push it out there onto social media. Thank you for the reminder, John. Ticket Smarter is the best secondary platform on the market for game tickets. So please, you're going to help yourself, most importantly, with $10 off or $20 off with those 2 promo codes of BIG or Big 20 for any game you want to go to. Look up any game on ticketsmarter.com or download the app Ticket Smarter. Think smarter, Ticket Smarter, and go there and look up what games you want to go to. If you are a mentee of Connor Stallions and you need tickets to any games, you could let Connor know, hey, I got us $20 off the tickets using Ticket Smarter and the Voice of College Football's promo code. There you go. All right. And I am going to be, anybody that follows me on Twitter, as soon as we get done here, I am going to contact this guy. I'm going to contact him on Twitter and see if he would like to appear for an interview. Now, we know what the response is going to be. I know that. There's not going to be any response, but it'll be fun. It will be fun. All right, folks, I've done about all I can do. It's been a long day, but it's been a good day because of all of you. So we appreciate you being here. And I am going to say this specifically to Michigan fans. We have tremendous Michigan fans like John here. We've got Mike Ford. I don't want to start listing all of you because I'm going to miss all sorts of Michigan fans. You guys are amazing because of this. You guys are amazing because you know who I root for. And that nobody knew that for a long, long time. And I wish to God, but it will never happen again because we can't go back in time. That people didn't know who I rooted for. And I just thought this worked even better at that point. And I was amazed at how many people didn't ask. But then the floodgates opened, and I appreciate Michigan fans for you. Number one, this is a difficult time for you. Let's be honest. This is a difficult time for you because probably many of you would like, of course, Michigan to be exonerated for their nothing to come of this, but you also kind of wrestle with, you want justice, you want right to be served, and whatever the right is, and if Michigan's in the wrong, you would like that to be justified and for that to be brought into the light and investigated properly and all of that. So you're weighing your fandom versus what is right and just and fair. But we appreciate you being here because you have to put up with a lot with the various other fan bases, the Ohio State fans and others. And I take my poke here and there, wink, wink, but I try to cut it straight and I do my best to treat this as a serious topic and as a neutral person. And I honestly say this, and that's a word I never use because I would like everything to be considered. It's whatever I'm saying is the truth and it's being honest. So that's something I never say is to be, you always have to, at times I've heard that you have to be wary of somebody who constantly says, I'm being honest with you. Well, I would hope that you're always honest with me and you don't have to tell me that before you're being honest. But I don't want anything to come of this. I would love for this to come out that this guy acted on his own. He's just some rogue dude, and Michigan suspended him because they're like, what's going on here? And maybe a little bit was known by a few coaches or something. And I would like nothing more than nothing to come of this. Meaning not that that's just the result of the investigation, that they were not able to prove anything, but truly nothing happened. That's the world I would like to live in. Yes. So there you go. Christopher taking some kind of shot there. I see. I don't even know if that's presented well. So you can do better. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Yes, I would like this to all go away. I want the results to be clean and honest and forthright and the best teams to win on the field and there to be nothing past that. But we shall see how this lands. Appreciate you being here. The Voice of College Football, Dependent Fanatic. Appreciate you, Uncle Rico, Mozart's Ghost, JJ, all of you. Thank you for being here. Mike Ford, of course, and Moose. 8-0 Michigan, blah, blah, blah. Versus everyone. Go Blue. 81. Is that 81 or is that, yes, Go Blue 81. Yes, 1981. Michigan started this season number 1, lost to Wisconsin by a touchdown in game number 1. That was a shock to all of us. All right, we will see you next time here at the Voice of College Football. You have a great night.